Jacob was an Amish man. He lived a quiet life in a small village with his family. He wore simple clothes and worked hard every day on the farm. Jacob loved his community and the peaceful way of life. But he also wanted something more. He wanted a job in the city, a job where he could earn money to help his family. He dreamed of working in a big company. Jacob believed that hard work could change his life. One morning, Jacob traveled to the city. He wore his plain clothes and carried a small bag. He felt nervous but hopeful. The city was loud and busy. Cars honked and people hurried everywhere. Jacob arrived at a big office building. He wanted to work there. Inside, people wore suits and talked on their phones. Jacob stepped forward and asked to meet the manager. He wanted to apply for a job. The manager looked at Jacob's clothes. He saw Jacob's beard and plain hat. The manager smiled politely but said, "We don't have jobs for people like you." Jacob was shocked. He did not understand. "Why?" he asked softly. The manager didn't answer clearly. Jacob left the building, feeling sad. He had worked hard all his life, but now he felt rejected. He wondered if his Amish way of life was a problem. Would anyone give him a chance? Jacob walked slowly down the busy city street. His heart felt heavy. He had traveled far and worked hard just to be turned away because of how he looked and where he came from. The world outside his village seemed strange and cold. He thought about his family back home, his wife, Sarah, and their 3 children. They depended on him. Jacob had wanted to bring them a better life, but now he wasn't sure if that was possible. As he sat on a bench near the office building, people passed by without noticing him. He felt invisible, like he didn't belong here at all. His plain clothes and wide-brimmed hat made him stand out like a stranger in a foreign land. Jacob tried to shake off the sadness. He reminded himself that he was a hard worker. He knew farming and fixing things. He had strong hands and a strong heart. But in this city, none of that seemed to matter. That evening, Jacob found a small diner to eat. He sat alone, quietly watching people laughing and talking. He overheard a group of young men talking about a new company opening nearby. They said it was looking for workers, but only certain types of people. Jacob thought maybe this was his chance. He decided to visit the new company the next day. Maybe they would see past his clothes and beard. Maybe they would give him a fair chance. But deep inside, a small voice told him to be careful. The city was not like his village. People here judged quickly, and sometimes they judged too harshly. Jacob left the diner with a mix of hope and fear. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. He would not give up without trying. The next morning, Jacob woke up early. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with soft orange colors. He packed a small lunch and put on his plain clothes once more. His heart was filled with hope, but also a little fear. Would this new company be different? Jacob walked through the busy streets, past tall buildings and honking cars. People rushed by, staring at him strangely. He felt their eyes like tiny needles. Sometimes they whispered or laughed quietly when they thought he wasn't looking. Finally, Jacob reached the new company's office. It was a modern building, shining with glass windows. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The receptionist looked up at him with surprise. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but cool. "I would like to apply for a job," Jacob said clearly, trying to keep his calm. She nodded and handed him a form. Jacob filled it out carefully, writing down his name, skills, and experience. Soon, a man in a suit came to speak with him. "Mister," the man asked, looking at Jacob's form. "Jacob," he answered. "Well, Jacob, what makes you think you are a good fit for this company?" the man asked, folding his arms. Jacob spoke honestly. "I'm a hard worker. I learn fast. I am honest and reliable." The man raised an eyebrow. "But you understand we have a certain image here. We need employees who fit in with our culture." Jacob looked down. He understood what that meant. His beard, his clothes, his way of life, they were all different from theirs. "Thank you for your time, Jacob," the man said, standing up. "We'll let you know." Jacob left the building feeling the sting of rejection once again. He knew it wasn't about his skills or his work ethic. It was about who he was. He walked slowly back through the busy streets. He felt invisible, unwanted, but he refused to let this break his spirit. At home, Jacob told Sarah what had happened. She held his hand and said, "Don't lose hope. We will find a way. You are more than what they see." Jacob nodded. He loved his family more than anything. For them, he would keep trying, even if the world seemed against him. Days passed slowly. Every morning, Jacob dressed in his plain clothes, hoping for a chance. But every day, the answer was the same: rejection. Sometimes it was polite, other times cold and blunt, but always it hurt. The worst part was the whispers and the looks. At the grocery store, people would stare. At the bus stop, children would point. Once, a man sneered at him and muttered, "Old-fashioned fool." Jacob felt his pride shrink a little with each insult. He wondered if the city was too big, too harsh for a simple Amish man like him. The peaceful life he loved seemed so far away now. One afternoon, Jacob went back to the company that had turned him down twice. He hoped to talk to the manager again, to explain himself. Maybe if they understood him better, they would change their minds. But the receptionist shook her head when he arrived. "The manager is busy," she said quickly. Jacob waited for an hour. Then 2 workers came out and saw him sitting quietly in the lobby. "What are you doing here?" one asked, sneering. "You don't belong." Jacob's heart sank. "I only want a chance," he said softly. The workers laughed. "You don't fit in. No one wants you here." Jacob stood up, his face burning with shame. He felt humiliated in front of everyone. He left the building quickly, fighting back tears. Outside, the sun was hot and harsh. The noise of the city was louder than ever. Jacob felt small and broken. At home, he told Sarah about the incident. She held him close and whispered, "You are strong. Don't let them steal your worth." That night, Jacob prayed quietly in the dark. He asked for courage and hope. He wanted to believe that one day things would change. Jacob's heart was heavy, but he refused to give up. Every morning, he woke with the same hope. Maybe today will be different. One day, while walking through the city, Jacob noticed a flyer on a street pole. It was an advertisement for a small company looking for workers. The flyer said, "Honest, hardworking people wanted. No experience needed." Jacob's eyes lit up. This sounded different. Maybe this company cared more about who he was than how he looked. He took down the flyer and found the address. The next morning, he prepared himself. He brushed his beard, put on his best plain clothes, and walked with steady steps. When he arrived, the office was small but welcoming. A friendly woman greeted him with a smile. "Hello, how can I help you?" she asked warmly. "I saw your flyer. I want to work," Jacob said with hope. The woman nodded. "Great, let's talk." Jacob shared his story honestly. He talked about his life in the Amish village, his hard work on the farm, and his desire to support his family. The woman listened carefully. She did not judge his clothes or his beard. Instead, she asked questions about his skills and his values. "I like your honesty and work ethic," she said. "We need people like you." Jacob felt a spark inside. For the first time, someone saw him for who he truly was. She offered him a small job in the warehouse. It wasn't a big position, but it was a start. Jacob thanked her with a smile. He felt hope growing in his heart again. Jacob started his new job early the next morning. The warehouse was busy, with boxes stacked high and machines humming. It was different from the quiet farm, but Jacob was ready to learn. At first, some workers glanced at him strangely. His Amish clothes made him stand out. Some whispered quietly, but Jacob ignored them. He focused on the work. The job was not easy. Jacob had to lift heavy boxes and organize shipments. His hands grew sore, but he worked steadily. He arrived early and stayed late. He wanted to prove he was dependable. The manager, Mr. Roberts, watched Jacob carefully. He noticed how Jacob never complained and always helped others. One day a problem came up. A shipment was lost and the warehouse team was stressed. Jacob calmly helped find the missing boxes. His careful attention saved the day. Mr. Roberts came to him and said, "Good job, Jacob. You're a hard worker." Jacob smiled but stayed humble. He still felt unsure if the others would accept him. Slowly, some workers began to talk to Jacob. They asked about his village and his way of life. Jacob shared simple stories about farming, family, and faith. Some laughed and said they never knew the Amish were so kind and hardworking. Jacob began to feel like he belonged. His faith and patience were paying off. Days turned into weeks, and Jacob's hard work did not go unnoticed. The workers who once whispered behind his back began to greet him with nods and smiles. His steady nature and kind heart were starting to break down the walls of misunderstanding. One afternoon, the warehouse held a small lunch break. Jacob sat quietly in a corner, eating the simple meal Sarah had packed for him. A man named Mike, who worked in shipping, noticed him. "Hey, Jacob," Mike said, walking over. "Mind if I join you?" Jacob looked up, surprised but happy. "Not at all." Mike sat down and started talking about his family and his job. Jacob listened and shared stories about his children and the farm. Mike was fascinated. "I never knew life could be so different. You folks live simple, but it sounds peaceful." Jacob smiled softly. "It is, but it is not always easy." That day, Mike introduced Jacob to some other workers. Slowly, Jacob found friends. They respected his honesty and work ethic. One evening, Mr. Roberts called Jacob to his office. "Jacob, I want to say something," he began. "You have changed the way some of us think. Your patience and hard work remind us what really matters." Jacob felt a warmth inside. It was not just about the job anymore. It was about respect. But Jacob also knew there was still a long way to go. Some people still judged him, but now he had friends who believed in him. One cold morning, a big meeting was held at the company. The boss came from the head office to visit. Everyone was nervous. The company was growing, and they wanted to impress the higher-ups. Jacob felt the tension in the air. He kept working quietly, stacking boxes and checking inventory. He wanted to do his best, as always. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the loading dock. A heavy pallet had fallen, blocking the doorway. Several workers tried to move it, but it was stuck. The boss came rushing over. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Jacob stepped forward. "I can help," he said calmly. Without waiting, Jacob rolled up his sleeves and pushed with all his strength. Slowly, the pallet moved. With a final strong push, it was clear. The boss watched, surprised. "Well done," he said. "I didn't expect that." The workers cheered quietly. For the first time, Jacob was not just accepted, he was admired. After the meeting, the boss asked to speak with Jacob alone. "I hear you've been doing excellent work," the boss said. "Your attitude is a great example." Jacob bowed his head politely. "Thank you, sir. I only want to work hard and help." The boss smiled. "We're going to offer you a permanent position with a raise. You deserve it." Jacob could hardly believe it. After all the rejection and pain, finally, his hard work was rewarded. He thought about Sarah and their children. This job could change their lives. With his new permanent position, Jacob's confidence grew. He worked even harder, always doing his best. The respect from his co-workers continued to increase. Some who once judged him now came to him for advice. But despite the progress, Jacob could not forget the early days. The rejection, the whispers, the humiliation. They still hurt. Sometimes, late at night, he would lie awake thinking about those moments. One day, The company organized a big event to celebrate its success. All employees were invited. Jacob was nervous but excited. This was his chance to show how far he had come. At the event, Jacob was introduced to the CEO and other important people. He smiled politely, remembering the cold rejection he had faced months before. Suddenly, one of the men who had turned him away earlier came forward. His face was red with shame. "Jacob," he said quietly, "I was wrong to judge you. You've shown us all what true character looks like. I apologize." Jacob felt a wave of relief and forgiveness. He nodded and said, "Thank you. We all learn." The crowd applauded. Jacob's story had changed hearts. From that day on, Jacob knew he had not only found a job, but also earned respect and dignity. Jacob stood quietly at the edge of the crowd during the company's celebration. The room was filled with laughter, music, and warm lights. He looked around and felt a deep sense of gratitude. It had been a long, difficult journey from the moment he first walked into that city, unsure and rejected, to this moment of acceptance and respect. The CEO stepped forward and addressed the employees. "Today, we celebrate more than just business success. We celebrate the strength, hard work, and integrity of every person here, including Jacob, whose story reminds us all what true character means." Jacob felt the eyes of everyone in the room on him. He stood tall, humble but proud. He thought of his family, how Sarah had never stopped believing in him, how his children inspired him to keep going. After the speech, the CEO invited Jacob to the front and offered him a special award. "Jacob, thank you for your dedication. You've helped us see beyond appearances and embrace what truly matters." Jacob accepted the award with a quiet smile. He looked around and saw the faces of co-workers who had once doubted him, but now called him a friend. It was more than just a job now. It was a community. That night, Jacob returned home to his village. The city's noise faded behind him as he stepped back into the calm, green fields. He felt a new strength inside, a bridge between two worlds. Jacob knew that life would still have challenges, but now he had proof that kindness, patience, and faith could change even the hardest hearts. And with that, Jacob's story became a light for others like him, a story of hope, respect, and a new beginning.